The most famous person in this story isn't named in any history book. He killed 5 women. He sent letters to the police. At one point, he literally mailed some guy half a human kidney with a note that basically said, "Hey, by the way, I fried the other half and it was delicious." Newspapers around the world were losing their minds about him. And yet 137 years later, with all our DNA tech and forensic science and Reddit detectives, we still have absolutely no idea who he was. And he's not even close to the only one. History is stuffed with these guys, people who shaped the world, changed kingdoms, or just walked off into the night. And somehow, nobody managed to write their name down. Or if they did, nobody believed it, or somebody erased it on purpose. Today we're going through 5 of them. Stick around for the last guy, because that one's a 5,300-year-old murder where we know what the victim ate for dinner, we know how many tattoos he had, we know 4 other people's blood was on his clothes, and we still can't ID the guy who killed him. Let's go. Okay, so we have to start with the most famous unidentified guy in history. There's no way around it. Autumn of 1888, London, the Whitechapel district, which historians have politely called the absolute worst place to be alive in the entire British Empire. Foggy, dirty, dangerous, smelled like a sewer because it kinda was a sewer. And one day, somebody starts cutting women apart in the streets. 5 murders between August and November. 5 women, all killed in roughly the same area, in roughly the same horrific way. Throat cut, abdomen mutilated, organs removed in some cases. All done in minutes, in public, on streets that were being patrolled extra hard because of the murders. Which honestly is kind of an insane flex from this guy. Nobody ever saw him do it. Nobody ever caught him. Nobody ever figured out his name. The nickname comes from a letter the police got, written in red ink, signed Jack the Ripper. Most modern experts think that specific letter was a hoax written by some journalist trying to sell newspapers. Which, I gotta say, is a sentence I really wish I didn't have to say out loud. But then a second letter shows up. This one called the Saucy Jackie postcard. And here's where it gets weird. The postcard arrived the morning after a double murder, before the news of that double murder had hit the public. Whoever wrote it knew the details only the killer would have known. Was that thing on the news already? No, Steve, that's the whole problem. And then, the third letter, this one gets mailed to a guy named George Lusk, who ran a local neighborhood watch group. He opens the package. Inside is a letter in a tiny box. Inside the box is half of a human kidney. The letter's written in this absolutely deranged casual tone. It says, and I'm not making this up, "I send you half the kidney I took from one woman. The t'other piece I fried and ate. It was very nice," spelled N-I-S-E, with his typos and everything. This guy is bragging about a snack he made out of a murder victim and he can't spell. A hospital doctor examined the kidney and said it showed signs of chronic alcoholism, which lined up exactly with one of the victims, Catherine Eddowes, who had her left kidney removed by the killer. So was it her? Probably. Can we prove it? No, we never will. The killing stopped after the 5th victim, Mary Jane Kelly. She was killed indoors, in her own little rented room, which meant the killer had hours of privacy this time. He used her fireplace to burn her clothes, for light so he could see what he was doing. The crime scene photo from her room is one of the most studied and most suppressed images in forensic history. And then he just stopped. Like, full stop. No more murders, no more letters. Gone. Some people think he died. Some think he got locked up for something else. Some think he moved out of London. And the worst theory, the one that absolutely sends people, is that he didn't stop at all. He just got better at hiding the bodies. The case file at Scotland Yard is technically still open today. There's no statute of limitations on murder. So somewhere in a London archive, 137 years after the fact, there's an open folder for a guy nobody ever met. Okay, this next one's genuinely my favorite mystery of all time. Thanksgiving Eve, 1971. A guy in a dark suit and tie walks up to a ticket counter in Portland, Oregon. He's calm. He's polite. He buys a one-way ticket to Seattle under the name Dan Cooper. Somewhere along the way, the press misreported him as D.B. Cooper, and that name stuck, which means the most famous skyjacker in American history is famous under a name he never actually used. The dude got branded incorrectly and never got to correct anyone. He gets on the plane, which is a Boeing 727. He orders a bourbon and a soda. He pays for the drink. He tips the flight attendant. Because of course he does. He's polite. We'll come back to that. Then he hands her a note. The note says he has a bomb. He politely opens his briefcase to show her. Wires, a battery, red sticks, the whole Hollywood movie kit. Whether it was a real bomb or a really good prop, nobody's ever figured out. He demands $200,000 in cash. In 1971 money, which is about $1.5 million today. So this man basically just took out a loan from the airline at gunpoint. And he asked for 4 parachutes. Now, this is the part that immediately made the FBI lose their minds. Why 4? You're one guy. You only need 1. Unless you're trying to make them think you might force one of the crew members to jump with you. In which case, they can't risk giving you sabotage parachutes, because then they'd be killing their own people. This guy played 4-dimensional chess from row 18. Plane lands in Seattle. FBI's already there. He gets the cash, gets the parachutes, and lets all 36 passengers walk off the plane completely unharmed. Doesn't hurt anyone, not even a stern look. Then he orders the plane to take off again with a skeleton crew, heading for Mexico City. Low altitude, slow speed, flaps down. Very specific instructions. And somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, in the middle of a freezing rainstorm, at 10,000 feet in a business suit and loafers, like he was on his way to a meeting, Dan Cooper opens the rear stairway of the plane. And he jumps. Sir, are you sure about this? It's a storm. You're in a suit. Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks, though. Nobody ever sees him again. Nobody. No parachute, no suit, nothing. In 1980, 9 years later, a kid was playing on a riverbank in Washington and dug up a rotting wad of $20 bills, about $5,800 worth. The serial numbers matched the ransom money exactly. The rest of the cash? Vanished. Here's the thing that always gets me. Dan Cooper specifically chose the Boeing 727. Why? Because at the time, it was the only commercial airplane in the world with a rear air stair that could be opened mid-flight. This wasn't luck. He knew aviation. He knew exactly which plane to pick and exactly when to jump out of it. He smoked Raleigh cigarettes during the flight and just left the butts behind. DNA testing decades later came back inconclusive. The man even got away from his own cigarettes. The FBI worked the case for 45 years, the longest active investigation in their history. In 2016, they officially suspended it. Couldn't crack it. It's the only unsolved skyjacking in American aviation history. The only one, ever. And somewhere, theoretically, there's a now very old man who knows exactly what happened that night and is just chilling about it. Okay, so we've done a London killer and an airplane jumper. Now, I need you to picture this. New Orleans, 1918. The Spanish flu is ripping through the country. World War I just ended. Life is generally not great. And in the middle of all this, somebody starts breaking into people's homes in the middle of the night and attacking sleeping families with axes, often using the family's own axe, which he'd find sitting in their backyard or shed. He kills at least 6 people and wounds a bunch more. He targets Italian immigrant grocers first. There's a whole theory about anti-Italian gang stuff in New Orleans at the time. But eventually he just starts hitting other families too. Husbands, wives, kids, whole households gone in one night. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no motive. Nothing taken from the houses. Money, jewelry, valuables left sitting right there in plain sight. He didn't want stuff. He wanted blood. And here's the part that really sells it. He got into the houses by chiseling out a door panel. Not breaking a window, not picking a lock, carefully cutting out one wooden panel of the door so he could reach in and unlock it. That is a craftsman technique. Like a carpenter knows how to do that. Your average back alley creep doesn't. The few victims who survived gave wildly different descriptions. A large white man, a black man. Heights, builds, everything contradicted each other. New Orleans in 1918 was a powder keg of racial tension, so a lot of what witnesses said probably said more about their politics than the actual killer. We genuinely have no idea what this guy looked like. And then, in March 1919, this is the moment that puts this case in a category of its own. Every newspaper in New Orleans publishes a letter. The letter is from the Axeman. He claims he's a demon from hell. He says he cannot be caught because he's not entirely of this world. And then he gives the city an offer. He writes, and again, I have to stress, this is a real letter that real police really received in real life, that on Tuesday, March 19th, at exactly 12:15 a.m., he was going to attack someone in New Orleans unless he could clearly hear jazz music coming from the house. Anyone playing jazz that night would be spared. The Axeman, apparently, was a music critic. So what did the city of New Orleans do? Did they call in the National Guard? Did they evacuate the city? Did they panic? No. New Orleans threw the biggest party in its history. Every house in the city blasted jazz. Bars overflowed. Bands played in the streets all night. Composers literally wrote new songs specifically for that night. There's a piece of sheet music from 1919 called The Mysterious Axeman's Jazz, or Don't Scare Me, Papa, that you could still buy. They literally turned a serial killer threat into a music festival. And nobody died that night. Then, the Axeman just stopped. He killed maybe one or two more times after that, then vanished completely. Never identified. Never caught. And here's the part that nobody talks about enough. There were similar axe murders in Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama between 1911 and 1929 that some investigators have retroactively linked to the same guy. If those are all him, the total possible body count is up to 49 people across 3 states. That's not a killer, that's a touring act. He scared an entire American city into throwing the world's biggest jazz party. He left no fingerprints, no witnesses, no motive. He walked into bedrooms in the middle of the night with people's own tools and just disappeared. Hey, real quick, I know, but honestly, if you're still here after kidney mail and a guy who skydived in a suit and a killer who literally took requests, you might want to hit subscribe. Just saying, stick around. The next one's about 2 royal kids who vanished out of a castle. And the bones that might be them are sitting in Westminster Abbey right now. The British government won't let anyone test them. Subscribe or end up like the princes. Okay, sorry, back to it. Okay, so this next one's a little different. It's not a mystery about who somebody was. We know exactly who they were. The mystery is what happened to them, and whether the guy who became king right after did it. England, 1483. King Edward IV dies super suddenly. His 12-year-old kid becomes Edward V, which, 12 is not exactly prime kinging age, so his Uncle Richard steps in as protector. Yeah, Uncle Richard. Anyone with even basic medieval pattern recognition should be getting nervous right now, because every single time Uncle Anyone steps in as protector of a child king, the child king has a really tough Tuesday. It's basically a historical law. Don't blame me, blame medieval England. So Uncle Richard puts Edward V and his 9-year-old brother, also named Richard, because medieval English people had like 4 total names to work with, in the Tower of London. For their safety, for their protection. Nothing weird about it, don't worry about it. Within months, both boys vanish. Just gone. Poof. Uncle Richard then conveniently becomes King Richard III. The kids are never seen again. No bodies, no graves, no funeral, no records of their deaths. Just 2 empty rooms and a tower. Now, here's where the actual mystery kicks in. In the years after Richard III takes the throne, multiple guys started showing up around Europe claiming to be the younger prince. One of them, a guy named Perkin Warbeck, got so convincing he raised an army and tried to invade England with it, like a literal I'm the lost prince come back to claim my throne military campaign. Was he the real prince, or just a really committed grifter? Nobody ever proved it either way. And here's the part that always gets me. Henry VII, the guy who became king after Richard III, had every political reason in the world to publicly blame Richard for the murders. It was free PR. He never did. Officially, which is weird, right? Like dunking on your dead rival's the easiest move in politics, and Henry just didn't. Almost like he knew something we don't. 200 years later, in 1674, some workmen renovating a staircase in the Tower of London pry up some stones and find a wooden box. Inside the box are 2 child-sized skeletons, roughly the right ages. King Charles II takes one look and goes, "Yep, those are the princes," and has them buried in Westminster Abbey. Here's the kicker. Those bones have been sitting in Westminster Abbey for over 300 years, and the British Crown's refused to allow DNA testing on them. For over 100 years, they've blocked every single attempt. We could literally solve this mystery in a week. We're choosing not to. And just to put a cherry on top, a historian recently claimed she found evidence that one of the boys actually survived and lived under a fake identity in Belgium. Most academics rejected it. The debate's still ongoing. So either 2 murdered kids are buried in a London church, or one of them grew old in Belgium under a fake name and died of natural causes. We have the technology to find out. The answer's in a box. The box is locked. Nobody's allowed to open it. Saving the absolute wildest one for last, because this one isn't from 1888 or 1483 or 1971. This is the oldest cold case in the history of being human. In 1991, two German hikers in the Alps spotted what they thought was a recently dead body sticking out of the ice. They called the police. Police called forensics. Forensics called the archaeologists. Because the guy in the ice wasn't a hiker. The guy in the ice had been dead for 5,300 years. His name became Ötzi. To put that in perspective, Ötzi died before the pyramids were built, before Stonehenge was finished, before written language existed in most of the world. We're talking deep, deep prehistory. And here's the unhinged part. We know almost everything about his death, except who did it. We know what he ate for his last meal. Ibex meat, einkorn wheat, and bracken fern, eaten 30 to 90 minutes before he died. He was literally still digesting dinner when he got shot. We know he had 61 tattoos on his body, in specific patterns that line up almost perfectly with modern acupuncture points. These are the oldest tattoos in human history, by the way. Ötzi was the original tatted up dude. We know he was carrying an unfinished bow. He was in the middle of making a new weapon when he died. His old bow was broken, like he knew somebody was coming for him. We know he had defensive wounds on his hands from a fight a few days before he died. Same attacker? Probably. We know there's blood from at least 4 other people on his clothes and weapons, meaning before Ötzi got killed, Ötzi was out there racking up a body count. We know he was shot from behind, from below with an arrow, which means he was ambushed from cover. This wasn't a fair fight. Someone was hiding. And then his body was deliberately positioned in the snow, face down, arms placed in a specific way. The killer staged the scene before walking off. Now, here's the detail that really bothers me. Ötzi was carrying a copper axe. In his time period, a copper axe was the ancient equivalent of walking around with a Rolex on, the single most valuable thing he owned. It would have been the first thing any random bandit would have stolen. The killer didn't take it, which means the killer wasn't there for money. The killer wasn't a thief. The killer was there for him, personally, for some specific reason. 5,300 years ago, in a remote mountain pass with nobody around, somebody had a grudge against this guy. And one more thing, they call it the curse of Ötzi. At least 7 people connected to the discovery or study of the body had died under unusual circumstances. Heart attacks, car crashes, a guy hit by falling rocks in the same mountains. Is it real? No. Is it a coincidence? Yes. Does it show up in every YouTube comment section about him? Absolutely. 5,300 years ago, in the Alps, someone committed a murder. They knew the victim. They planned it. They waited in cover. They shot him. They staged the scene. They walked away. And the murder is still unsolved. 5 people. 5 mysteries. 5 names history just somehow forgot to write down. Some of them killed. Some of them ruled. Some of them straight up skydived out of a plane and disappeared into a thunderstorm. One of them threatened an entire American city and got a jazz festival as a peace offering. But every single one of them got away with whatever they did. And in some cases, we're not even sure what they did. We could date a 5,000-year-old mummy. We could pull DNA off a 1971 cigarette butt. We can match a tooth in a wooden box to a body that's been sitting in a museum for 100 years. And we still don't know who any of these people were. History is full of holes. The biggest ones look an awful lot like people. Subscribe for more, or end up like the princes. I'll see you in the next one. And next time you Google somebody and an actual page loads, appreciate it. Most of history didn't get that lucky.